Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the opening ceremony of APrIGF and TWIGF 2024 in Taipei. Our opening ceremony is scheduled to begin at 9:30. Simultaneous interpretation service is provided on site. You may borrow an interpreting device with your ID card or any identity document at the reception desk. Please select Channel 1 for Chinese and Channel 2 for English. 各位贵宾早安，我们今天的活动预计会在9点半开始。提醒大家，我们稍后的活动会以英语进行。我们现场有提供同步口译的服务。各位来宾如果有需要，可以凭您的证件至场外的柜台来租借口译机，并且选择频道1为中文，频道2为英文。谢谢。 Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony will begin in 5 minutes. Please kindly take your seats. To ensure a smooth start, entry to the venue will be closed now. For guests who arrive and coming after this time, a live broadcast will be available in room 401. 现场的各位来宾，我们的开幕式再过5分钟即将开始。为了议程的顺利进行，我们的会场即将关闭。在9点25分以后抵达或进场的来宾，我们会先安排各位至401的会议室来观看直播。我们的会议即将开始，也请各位尽速就座，谢谢。Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony is begin shortly. Please kindly take your seats. Thank you very much. 现场的贵宾，我们的开幕式即将开始，请各位尽速就座，谢谢。 Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Vice President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Bi-khim Hsiao. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and participants joining us on-site and online, welcome to the opening ceremony of APrIGF and TWIGF 2024 in Taipei. The APrIGF and TWIGF's joint opening ceremony today is hosted by Taiwan's Ministry of Digital Affairs, TWNIC, and TWIGF. This key event unites Asia-Pacific stakeholders to address internet governance issues. We hope this three-day agenda can offer valuable insights and fosters meaningful exchanges. Today, we are honored to be joined by a great many distinguished guests. And now, please allow me to introduce the honorable guests that are with us today. Please stand up and wave hello to everyone when your name is called. First, please join me in welcoming Vice President Bi-khim Hsiao of the Republic of China, Taiwan. Welcome. Moving on, let's welcome Minister Ye-nan Huang of Ministry of Digital Affairs. Deputy Minister Ning Ye of Ministry of Digital Affairs. Ms. Yi Hui Wang, Commissioner of National Communication Commission. Welcome. Dr. Kenny Huang, Chair of TWNIC. Ms. Ruo Fanyu, Board Member and CEO of TWNIC. Ms. Amrita Chaudhry, APrIGF MSG Chair. Welcome. Dr. Joe Murai, Professor at Keio University. Welcome. Mr. Guo Wei Wu, Chair of TWIGF. Mr. Edmund Zhuang, Board Member of ICANN and CEO of .Asia organization. Moving on, at the beginning of the opening ceremony, we are honored to invite Ms. Amrita Chaudhry, Chair of MSG of APrIGF, to give us the opening remarks. Welcome.
Respected Vice President of the Republic of China, Bi-khim Hsiao. Sorry, my pronunciation may not be all that right. Respected Minister of Ministry of Digital Affairs, Yunin Huang. Respected Minister, Mr. Nin Ye. Chair of TWNIC, Kenny Huang. Chair of TWIGF, Kuo Wei. Distinguished guests, fellows, youth leaders, ladies, gentlemen, both in the room and online. Huan Dai Jiao Lai Dao, APrIGF 2024. Welcome to APrIGF 2024. Sorry, my pronunciation is not good. My apologies. So on behalf of the APrIGF multi-stakeholder group, I warmly welcome you to this event. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our wonderful host, TWNIC, the MSG and the Secretariat, who have been working really hard behind the scene for the last few months to make this event happen. And thank you to all our sponsors who have supported to promote the open and multi-stakeholder platform in our Asia-Pacific region. I also want to specifically welcome the fellows and youth leaders who have come from different parts of our region. We have a varied region, so They can come here to share their diversity as well as universality in many things. And we look forward to your engagement, and we will be happy to help you in this journey. Irrespective of the background, age, stakeholder community, language, experience you come from, I hope in the next 3 days, you actively participate in the diverse discussions in the 27 sessions which we have under the 3 thematic tracks: security and trust, resilience, and ethical governance of emerging technologies. Ask lots of questions, share your perspectives to shape the IG discussions in our region, and don't feel shy. This community is pretty welcoming. It's not as if people will not speak to you when you meet them. And last but not the least, today when technology is leapfrogging, there is a rising concern of security, resilience, deepening digital and technological divide, and concerns of security, resilience, the divide between the developed and developing countries, human rights abuse, and geopolitics. So your voices are important. So we have the town halls and the synthesis document, and we hope you can contribute and help in shaping the key takeaways for the synthesis document for this event on how the evolving ecosystem we can defend the core principles such as the multi-stakeholder nature of the internet and shape the internet to what we want, not what someone else wants. And while doing so, please be respectful, courteous, and have some empathy and patience for others, because not everyone is in the same level. And we hope you keep engaged in the IG discussions and ecosystem in your countries, the Asia-Pacific, and the global arena. And last but not the least, have fun, network, enjoy this beautiful city, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Churchy, for the opening remark and a very hearty welcome to kick off the event. Moving on, please welcome Dr. Kenny Huang, Chair of TWIGF, to give us his remark. Welcome.
Vice President Xiao and Mr. Huang and Deputy Minister Ye and Amrita, Chair of APrIGF, and Guowei Wu, Chair of TWIGF, and also Professor Jim Murray, the father of Internet in Asia. Good morning. My name is Kenny Huang, and Chair of TWIGF and APrIGF. It is my great honor on behalf of TWIGF to extend a warm welcome to everyone to APrIGF 2024. I think this event we are very delighted to host the event in Taipei again, after we have long running the same event here in 2016. That was 8 years ago. It's our honor to run the event in Taipei again. I think the return of APrIGF back to Taipei, and that symbolizes our ongoing commitment and also our commitment to sustain the inclusive internet ecosystem in Taiwan. And the theme of the conference this year actually is evolving ecosystem, and also try to enduring principle and shaping the shaping the responsible internet governance, if I remember correctly. And actually is also recognized and pretty much recognized with our current mission with TWIGF. And as we gather here, basically we are reminded and we are all responsible for keeping the internet as an open, secure environment. And people gathering here, and actually you are making a very important step. When you discuss in this forum, I encourage you to try to participate. And every discussion or the cooperation happening here is going to shape the future of internet in our region and beyond. TWIGF is dedicated to promoting the open, secure, resilient internet for everyone. So we are very delighted to hosting the event in Taipei again. And also, with this event, we can discuss a lot of different issues regarding to how to provide an open access to everyone, how to provide inclusive environment, how to make the internet more secure, more resilient. I think that's everyone's concern. According to recent a lot of activity, especially we have right conference here. We also concerned about the human right, digital right in this regime. So I think that's a very important step we can keep together to focus on the main issue here. So after our discussion for the next couple of days, I will encourage you to try to actively participate, share your insight, experience, and also your vision. Let's collaborate to deal with the challenge we face and also try to seek the opportunity that lie ahead. So your active participation and contribution will be crucial and to make a successful event for APrIGF 2024. I also like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all the committee in APrIGF and also our sponsor, of course, and also all the event supporting staff, and especially Ro Fan Yu, the CEO of TWIGF. Your dedication and hard work are truly appreciated. Finally, once again, welcome to APrIGF 2024. I'm looking forward a very active participation and also very productive outcome that will emerge from this event. Let's looking forward for a better future, internet future. Together, we can build an internet more inclusive, more secure, and more resilient, the internet for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huang, for the wonderful words. And it is indeed a great pleasure for Taiwan to host this great event after 8 years. Moving on, please welcome Mr. Guo Wei Wu, Chair of TWIGF, to also share a few words with us. Welcome.
Vice President Xiao Meiqin, our Minister Huang Yannan, and also our Deputy Minister of the Yeling, and Kenny Huang, and Professor Jun Murai, and also, of course, our very good friend, Nicole Zhang. All the distinguished guests, is really happy to see all of you to be here, second time. Kenny mentioned about 2016. Actually, that is the time I hosted APrIGF 2016 in Taipei. And that is a very important thing for the APrIGF because, you know, we have a very big community in the AP region and almost cover 56 countries. And we gather all the information. And by end of year, there is an IGF, UN IGF. The APrIGF will going to present what is the APrIGF result coming out. And of course, this year, last year actually the IGF is in Kyoto. And you know, Jun Murai do a lot of things to make it happen. And it's very close to Taiwan, so we have several people go to the Kyoto and in the lovely city. And I think this internet governance is getting more sophisticated and complicated than usual. In the early day, I think Jun Murai remember, in this meeting we have 2 former ICANN board, Jun Murai and me, and we have another current ICANN board member is Eman Chang here. And in the early day, actually, most of IGF are talking about INA, how the INA management and operation. But this day, when we're talking about internet governance, it's much more than that. It's almost everything. This is what is Jun Murai saying yesterday. Today, the internet actually is a digital civilization instead of just talking about the technology. You know, you can see from education, technology, culture, everything is all in there, including the human rights. You know, so I think that is my great pleasure, you know, to be here and with you, and hopefully all of you can contribute your idea to this 2024 in Taipei, and hopefully this is a wonderful meeting for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wu, for the insightful remarks. Moving on, please join me in welcoming Mr. Yannan Huang, Minister of Ministry of Digital Affairs, to share a few words with us. Welcome.
Vice President Xiao and all distinguished guests, I was told that we are distinguished from over more than 60 countries. So welcome, and people here and people online. Thank you for invitation for me. It's a great honor for me to come to give us the speech at this opening. We know that the internet, the governance, internet is very important to our life. This is a conference, APrIGF and the TWIGF. Together, I think they provide a good ground for we to discuss many new development in internet technologies. We know that the internet has been, because of new technologies like the AI and many other applications of AI using internet, and it become an important platform for the new development, especially our digital economy. And for that, our ministry is in charge of planning and also help to build this so-called superhighway for digital economy in Taiwan. So, during this process, we already found there are many issues need to be resolved. One, of course, is we need to deal with many fraud issues. Okay, fraud is important, it's a difficult problems in the people use internet for cheating, that's very bad crime on the internet that need to be resolved. Now the other one is, of course, we see many disinformation using internet, and also that we see many security attacks and so on. So I think this kind of governance on internet is very important for we moving on for our civilization, for our economic development. So I'm looking for the forum like this, able to get together all the experts and then to discuss in the future how we can manage how to governance the internet, especially number issue. I think we know one of course the trustworthy. Okay, with trustworthy internet is very important. We need to not only to develop internet, we need to worry about the so-called human rights. Okay, and digital, especially the democracy on the internet. So definitely I like. Again, I'm looking forward for this event to be successful, for many good idea exchange. And I also like to emphasize that having this forum in Taiwan is very, Taiwan, because Taiwan is very good in terms of internet technology and in terms of application of internet. So and we have we know chips, many chips are developed and designed in Taiwan. We have the system developed in Taiwan. That can help the internet moving forward, especially in many application area. Again, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward and wish this event to be very successful. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Huang, for the inspiring words. As mentioned by Minister Huang, in the face of the sophisticated internet governance, it is indeed very crucial for us to have a platform where we can join hands and to boost a safer and more inclusive internet environment, which is why we are all here today. Moving on, with great honor, please give a warm round of applause to welcome Mi-King Xiao, Vice President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, onto the stage for her remarks. Welcome.
The host today, Chairman Wu of TWIFG, and also Chairman Kenny Huang of TWNIC, Minister Huang of our Ministry of Digital Affairs, and Deputy Minister Ye, distinguished guests, speakers Jun Murai, and ICANN board member, Mr. Chung, distinguished guests, of course, our first speaker today, Amrita Chaudhry, the chair of APrIGF MSG. Friends from abroad, from the region, who have come here to take part in this significant event, I want to first extend a very warm welcome to all of you. And of course, I'm pleased to be invited to attend this opening event of the 2024 Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum and Taiwan Internet Governance Forum joint annual meeting. And as I just heard, that it's been 8 years since Taiwan last held this event. And wow, so much has happened in 8 years. In the internet environment, in technology, in new challenges facing governance. And there are times when we feel that the regulatory environment and governance structure is not catching up with the rapid, explosive evolution of new digital technologies. So this is a very timely event, and I'm so pleased that it is being held in Taiwan again. And many thanks, of course, to all the sponsors who have supported this event. In this digital age, global internet governance has become increasingly significant and critical. And as a member of the international community, Taiwan's active participation is not just to enhance our digital competitiveness, but also to fulfill our international responsibilities and obligations, promoting the multi-stakeholder model of global internet governance. We recognize that the internet is developing at an unprecedented and astonishing speed. It is not only transforming economic structures and influencing social culture, but also bringing about significant changes in human lifestyles. Taiwan's digital policy emphasizes a multi-stakeholder model of internet governance, aiming to establish a free, open, and resilient internet ecosystem. Just 2 years ago, in 2022, Taiwan established the Ministry of Digital Affairs, which integrates information, cybersecurity, telecommunications, and network communications. This allows us to more efficiently promote Taiwan's digital transformation, thereby fostering digital economic development and national digital transformation. And of course, with this new ministry and Minister Huang, who you just met, I think he is one of the busiest people here, carrying a full load of very diverse responsibilities, from cybersecurity and the fraud and scam challenges that he just mentioned, but also propelling the growth of Taiwan's digital transformation across different industries, and also connecting Taiwan to the world by ensuring that our internet environment is resilient to the extent that we must survive and withstand all kinds of challenges and disruptions. And in the context of geopolitical risks, global developments, and natural disasters, we've been actively strengthening and enhancing Taiwan's digital resilience. Such resilience aims to ensure that in the face of adverse conditions, we will not only withstand challenges, but also effectively recover when needed, learning and improving in the process. This resilience is particularly important for Taiwan. Taiwan holds advanced semiconductor manufacturing technology and is at the center of the AI revolution. We are also a key player in the global democratic supply chain, as President Lai likes to call it. The security of Taiwan and the stability of the region are crucial to the interests of the entire world. So in addition to enhancing digital resilience, we continue to promote the cultivation of digital talent and digital empowerment, linking industries with international talent, providing policy support for upgrading information services, and assisting innovative information service providers. At the same time, we are fostering emerging AI applications in Taiwan, nurturing local technological innovation, and leveraging Taiwan's existing strengths in the ICT and other industries. By integrating AI, next-generation telecommunications, and other smart developments, we strive for innovative, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient technological upgrades and transformations, establishing more comprehensive and forward-looking technology and digital governance. In the future, Taiwan will not only be a technological Taiwan and a global Taiwan, but also a human-centered Taiwan. We will use technology to solve social problems and drive digital transformation through human and social needs. The people's needs will be prioritized in the process of digital and technical development, so as to establish a more comprehensive, inclusive, and forward-looking digital governance environment. Finally, I want to again thank everyone for joining today's event. I look forward to hearing about your valuable suggestions, insights, and advice through this forum, and let us work together to create a better digital future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Xiao, for the encouraging, insightful, and warm speech. Thank you very much once again. At the meantime, our appreciation goes to our on-site remark addressers for your speeches, your participation, and your support. Moving on to our next distinguished speakers, we are deeply honored to welcome Dr. Finserv, albeit in a virtual capacity. Dr. Finserv is a representative on the Internet Governance Forum Leadership Panel. As a representative, Serv continues to leverage his vast expertise in global internet policy, governance, and digital inclusion. His ongoing work ensures that the internet remains open, secure, and accessible for all. And we eagerly look forward to his insights as we continue to shape the future of this vital resource. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in watching the remark video of Dr. Finserv.
Hello, my name is Vince Cerf. I'm chairman of the leadership panel of the Internet Governance Forum, and I really appreciate an opportunity to talk about the APrIGF meeting coming up in 2024. Your topic is evolving systems and enduring principles, and this seems like a really, really good platform on which to lodge the discussion for this year. Internet continues to evolve. New functionality arrives just as it did as the World Wide Web showed up in late 1991. But now we're seeing the advent of artificial intelligence in a much more dramatic way than heretofore. Large language models in particular are a manifestation of machine learning, which is both surprising, astonishing, and also satisfying many people. These systems give a remarkable ability to be creative and inventive, to produce things at speed and at will, to try to adapt their output by using what's called prompt engineering, a whole new title of engineering. Just like webmasters didn't exist until the World Wide Web came along, and they all kind of taught each other. The same is happening now, I think, with prompt engineering. The problem we have, of course, with that particular kind of machine learning is that it still produces counterfactual output. I think it's largely because the training of those systems is context-free, or at least has limited context. So it doesn't know when it's taking factual material from multiple sources and conflating them and producing counterfactual output. So lots of people are trying to figure out how to manage that particular peculiarity of some of the large language models. On the other hand, some of the large language models are strikingly helpful for machine learning, for machine translation, for transcription, for speech recognition, for speech generation, for image generation. And of course, in the latter cases where it's a generative AI, we have the problem that some of the output may be misleading, possibly by accident and sometimes very deliberately. The question is, how do we hold parties accountable for abusing these powerful tools? That, of course, leads to a whole big debate on cybercrime, which is going on right now, certainly between the US and the European Union and presumably elsewhere as well. So we're now looking for accountability. We're looking for provenance. Where did information come from? How do we know what the sources are? How do we evaluate its veracity and its validity and reliability? So this is early days for solving some of those problems, but that's exactly why the Internet Governance Forum and the regional analogs of it are so important, because people with various perspectives can opine on both the problem and potential solutions to the problem. And here I think we have much to say, especially about the Global Digital Compact, which is in the process of evolving and being created within a UN context. I think the IGF has a really big role to play in looking at the outcomes of that digital compact and then its implementation and how well or how poorly the implementations produce the results that one is hoping for. So the IGF has a role to play in all of that, and I hope by the time WSIS Plus 20 shows up, which is next year, that we will come to a conclusion collectively that the IGF has an important role to play in the review and observation of the implementation of the compact. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person with you, but I can tell you I do pay attention to what comes out of APrIGF, and I'm looking forward to taking that output and helping to inform the discussions that will come at the end of this year in the annual IGF in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So I will thank you on behalf of the leadership panel and hope to see some of you in Riyadh in December.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to thank Dr. Sir for his inspiring remarks. Although Sir is unable to join us today, he did mention and bring up the critical topics that will be discussed and addressed during this time's event. And at the same time, we surely gain insights from his remark. Moving on, we will proceed to the keynote speech by Dr. John Murai, Distinguished Professor at Keio University and founder of APrIGF. Now, as the father of the Internet in Japan and the Internet Samurai, Dr. Murai established JUNET, Japan's first inter-university network, and the APrIGF, a Japanese Internet research consortium. And ladies and gentlemen, with great honor, please join me in welcoming Dr. Murai.
Thank you for a great introduction, and the Vice President and the distinguished guests and the ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, first of all, I'm very honored to be here, coming back to Taiwan with kind of long-term friends since probably the day zero of the internet, and I've been involved with many people. So let me share some of the thoughts of mine viewing the existing today's internet, and then probably the greater internet space for the kind of coming panel and sharing everything with the audience here. So one of the key issue of the after internet and the before the internet difference was that when we are developing the internet, then we didn't care very much about the national boundary and any kind of a boundary. So because we started as an academic network and a research network, therefore, which is a truly global space. So therefore, probably the internet is one of the first human being asset, which is truly global for active active participants on a global community by anybody, any people, any individual. So that was the new, which is the bottom side. And the top side is very much, kind of common international space. This is the IGF and the UN related meeting. Therefore, the collection of the country and the nation state working together, that's very much international space. So international space and the global space completely merging together today, which is very much background of the why we need to discuss about the internet governance with everybody, right? So which is one of the role of IGF. And so each of the nation states, of course, having a very much of the different culture, different legal background, and then different police, different, I did that very precisely about each of the currency are different, and then Taiwan and Japanese are almost the only country which is utilizing the vertical writing still. And so that was a very important thing I did for the WCC standard thing. And now, how important the Asia Pacific to work together, that this is one of the key points that I want to share with everybody. Because Asia Pacific, as a number, the internet participants is huge. And then, the total population of the world, then we still need the 30% to go for the internet inclusion, right? So the people to access the internet. But we also, in the region, we need to work together. Why we need to work together? One of the reasons is very much a real-time application benefit over the internet. So this is just 100 milliseconds of the RTT round-trip time over the internet in the Asia-Pacific region, which is different from the Americas and Europe, and for us to communicate with them. So this kind of vertical relationship is going to be very important for the real-time communication and the sharing of the data center, electricity, and the exchanging of the data. Then we have a lot of room to work together. That is another background. So I said that digital data, internet is now covering the digital data for AI and other things, and also the computers, which is also the very important role for Taiwan to produce the sophisticated silicon and the future most advanced technology about the computers, of course, and then it's going to be like a quantum smartphone and other chips, which is Taiwan's role. But of course, this area, we have a lot to work, and then the computation, where to locate, and when the quantum computing is coming in, which is very much another important aspect about the thinking about those. So internet now, not simply the connectivity of the communication, but also covering a lot of things like AI and with the digital data, and then the digital data computation and the electricity of the background as well. So how internet being so successful? Because as one of the person who's been involved from the day zero, the standardization has been very important because we have a common platform so that the next step of innovation can be sitting on top of that standard environment, right? So I'm often use video communication, like Netflix and YouTube and Zoom. They are just putting on sitting on the top of the standards. So the standardization is really important for the history of the internet and for the future as well. Therefore, the participants from the Asia-Pacific community to move the standard, to contribute to the standard, future standard is going to be very important. middle is the autonomously distributed system. That's the nature design of the internet. So one part crashed, but another part is still survived. And then the vice president told us resiliency of the environment, which is why the internet can be supporting that idea because of this, right? So no centralized control. So it's very difficult to stop everything. So that is the cause of the reason of the resiliency. And then the global governance with a multi-stakeholder model that's very important because it's talking about the data, technology, and the electricity, energy. It's a very much, we shouldn't think about all the silos, separate discussion. We need a, entire discussion. That is a very important thing. So talking about the standard, the IETF is top is North America, Europe, and Asia. So we should work together to increase the participant to the IETF community, which is very much a core protocol decision. So also a World Wide Web standard is really important. This is like a language, and I said the vertical writing, and the ID, security, and the payment, and the other infrastructure is built on a W3C standard. So we have very few contribution yet from the region. So this is another point that to encourage the standard. So lastly, this is one of the very interesting work that I said starting from the university to connection, and this is a research and educational network in the region. So every single nation state has a research and educational network, and they're working together, connecting together by the university people, research people to share the academicism wisdom. So this is very important to connect to the very broad channel. We are targeting now 400 gig as a standard, but we are now targeting for the 400 gig connectivity to every single university in the region and every single research center in the region. So to make sure that they can work together. Now Taiwan is sitting in a very good position because of all the cable is now shifting to the east and dropping to the Taiwan, which is very much a good opportunity for coming 5 years, 6 years. So the new cables coming for the 26, 25, 28 is all targeted to land in Taiwan. These are the, so this is the last slide of mine. So the data is now becoming very important, but the data can be a private, so data can be a public data by the, controlled by the government, and then the open data. This is also a public data, but that should be open over the internet. So, we need to work a lot for the secure sharing model because some of the things to be protected very in a high level of security technology, and then the open data should be accessed by everybody, including the kids. So the secure use of data, of course, resulted on a kind of advanced AI technology and others. So lastly, it's really important to work with the university and the educational entities because the future is going to be created by the young people. So young people accessing and understanding what the new meaning of digital data, computation, and the internet would be very important because they would create our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murai, for the wonderful sharing. And please, I'd like to invite Dr. Murai to stay with us on the stage for a group photo that we are going to have later. And ladies and gentlemen, to commemorate this special occasion, moving on, I would like to invite our guest of honor today to join Dr. Murai on the stage for a group photo together. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Ruofan Yu, CEO of TWIGF. Dr. Kenny Huang, Chair of TWNIC. Mr. Guowei Wu, Chair of TWIGF. Mr. Edmund Zhong, Board Member of ICANN. Ms. Amrita Chaudhry, APrIGF MSG Chair. Deputy Minister Ning Ye of Ministry of Digital Affairs. And Minister Yannan Huang of Ministry of Digital Affairs. And Vice President Mi-King Xiao, the Republic of China, Taiwan. Let's once again give a big hand and welcome our guests of honors to join us on the stage for a memorable moment to be captured. This year, we are delighted indeed that the APrIGF 2024 is held in conjunction with TWIGF 2024. I'm sure that this combination will offer participants both on-site and online richer and more diverse content and opportunities. And please look to the camera in the front with your smile. And moving on, let's to the camera to your right. And then, ladies and gentlemen, please look to the camera to your left. Now, as we look forward to promoting broader discussions on internet issues from local to global levels, we once again thank our distinguished guests to join us today. And once again, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, now as Vice President Xiao has other official duties, she will have to excuse us and depart now. So once again, let's give a warm round of applause as we bid her farewell. Thank you very much, Vice President Xiao, for joining us today. Thank you very much. Once again, we sincerely thank Vice President Xiao for attending today's opening ceremony, for her support and dedication to internet governance. And for the remaining guests, you may also remain back to your seat. Thank you very much. This year, the theme for the APrIGF is Evolving Ecosystem, Enduring Principles, Shaping Responsible Internet Governance. At the meantime, we will also be looking at artificial intelligence and the environment and how we can move towards a sustainable Earth. At the same time, the topic for TWIGF 2024 is to rethink internet governance from the aspects of artificial intelligence, resilience, sustainability, and security. After listening to Dr. Murai's presentations, I'm sure that we all gain valuable insights into responsible internet governance and how we can achieve a more responsible internet environment. Governments, private companies, and citizens all have a role to play in shaping the future of the internet. It can be a complex and sophisticated process, but it is ultimately essential for ensuring that the internet remains a safe and secure space for everyone. And now, ladies and gentlemen, after a fruitful keynote session, later on, we will proceed to the opening plenary. In this session, we are going to explore the topic of shaping the internet through multi-stakeholder governance. A healthy multi-stakeholder governance model is very crucial for the smooth functioning of internet. It allows the inclusive and adaptive governance that takes into account diversity of perspectives and contexts from various stakeholders. This is important in the backdrop of the constantly evolving nature of the internet and other digital technologies. The region, as we know, is at a crossroads, with issues related to digital divide and inclusion on the one hand, new and emerging technologies on the other, while also having to ensure the internet and related infrastructures are secure. As such, we must examine how these intersections impact each other and how these various issues can be governed through a robust multi-stakeholder model. In the plenary, we'll be having a great many exceptional experts to join us for discussions, and we are very excited to hear from their valuable insights. And now, as we are still enduring a setup for our stage, please stay with us and let's be patient to wait for a minute. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we are ready to kick off, now please join me firstly to welcome our moderator of the session, Ms. Pavrija Ramanunja, Asia Digital Rights Lead of Association for Progressive Communications, to join us on the stage first. Moving on, please welcome the panelists to also join us. Dr. Kenny Huang, Chair of TWIGF. Ms. Heather Atkins, Vice President of Security Engineering at Google. Welcome. And of course, our esteemed speaker, Dr. Jun Murai, Professor at Keio University. And Ms. Lisa Garcia, Executive Director of Foundation for Media Alternatives. Welcome. We're delighted to have experts, domestic and internationally, to join us today for more in-depth discussions with regard to internet governance. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we have our moderator and panelists with us on the stage, I'll hand the floor to our moderator to begin the plenary. Ms. Ramanunjan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to the opening plenary of this APrIGF 2024. My name is Pavitra Ramanujam. I'm with the Association for Progressive Communications, and I will be the moderator of this panel today. And I'm, of course, joined by a panel of experts here. Of course, we have Professor Jun Murai, Lisa Garcia, who's Executive Director of the Foundation for Media Alternatives, Kenny Huang, Chair of TWIGF, and Heather Atkins, who's Vice President of Security Engineering at Google. And thank you all so much for joining us today. The title of today's session is Shaping the Internet Through Multi-Stakeholder Governance. I'm sure everyone in this room agrees that the internet should be governed through a multi-stakeholder model. As our MC said earlier, it really does allow for a diversity of perspectives and a diversity of stakeholders. And I think that's especially crucial in our region because we are such a diverse region in every way. But the practicalities of implementing a multi-stakeholder model, of course, remain, whether it is in terms of competing priorities or the imbalance of power sometimes between stakeholders or the time that it actually takes to make decisions within this model. And as we are discussing the future of internet governance, particularly in global spaces and how the internet should be governed going forward, perhaps there's a bit of wariness about pursuing this multi-stakeholder model. Yet in our region, where we have so many contradictions, where we are excited by all of the emerging technologies and the possibilities that they present for making our lives better, but still being confronted by the realities of the digital divide and of many communities who are at risk of being left behind, it is actually very important for us to ensure that we're trying to get more people into the tent, that we're trying to get more people a seat at the table, and perhaps to reaffirm our commitment to the multi-stakeholder model, but maybe to reimagine it a little bit in a way that it is adaptive, inclusive, and secure. And so hopefully through the course of this conversation, we can unpack a little bit what that means in the context of our region. So I will invite now our panelists to share a little bit their views on this, and I request that you keep your opening interventions to 7 to 8 minutes perhaps, so that we also have time for discussion with the audience later. And maybe I can come to you first, Lisa. Particularly because when we talk about the multi-stakeholder model, I think we presume an equality of stakeholders, right? And that is often not the case, both in terms of the discipline of stakeholders who have a seat at the table. Sometimes we find that certain stakeholders like governments or private sector might have more of a decision-making power than civil society or the technical community or academia. But beyond that, in terms of who makes these stakeholders up, there is still continues to be an imbalance of power as well. For instance, whether it is because of geographies or backgrounds or the underrepresentation of certain communities who often don't have a voice in spaces like this. Could you tell us a little bit about your own experience from a civil society perspective engaging at internet governance processes, and also what you think we must do to ensure that it is a much more inclusive space where people have a more equal voice in terms of how decisions are made?
So thank you, Pavitra, for that question. Yes, as a civil society member, part of civil society, we're lucky and privileged to be part of spaces like this, the internet, including the Asia-Pacific Internet Governance Forums, because this is a space where we are able to interact with various multi-stakeholders. As you mentioned, there's government, the academic private sector, and fellow civil society members. Especially those who are also working on similar issues that we work with. That is important for us, especially small civil society organizations and communities that we work with, because we not get only to interact with them, but at the same time share our experiences, because we've been working on the ground, and at the same time learn from each other. So that's very important for us, and I think being part of processes like this is also somehow a recognition of the work that we've been doing in the area. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, there's also the issue of the imbalance of power. If we look, of course, historically, if you look at processes like the IGF, we have to question who have been participating, who are there on the table, are the voices actually especially of small groups being heard. Now there are, of course, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I believe in the importance of multi-stakeholderism, but there are many challenges for us civil society organizations and small groups. Can I continue? Yeah, and of course, number one would be the cost of participation. Not all of us, of course, can afford to come to, physically to other countries, no? Because it entails a lot of cost. As I mentioned, historically also, it has not been that easy for women to participate. The participation of women has been low in the first few years, but I'm glad that looking at the crowd here, we have a sizable, good number of women participants. It's also somehow, at times it's also intimidating to attend spaces like this. We're talking about technology, terminologies, the language. It's that difficult. It's not that easy to understand them, especially with how technology has been developing. So we have to understand what those terminologies are. And these conferences are also being held, when we have these conferences, we're using English as a language. We're not all native speakers of English. Of course, the venue would also, I think the venue would also be important to consider in which country is it being held, what's the human rights, let's say, policy of that country. The visa issue is also something that has to be considered so that people from developing countries can attend. And also, of course, we have to talk about the transparency and accountability, which was mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can I just ask you perhaps a quick follow-up in terms of what can be done, particularly, for instance, by processes such as the APrIGF or the IGF, to ensure that there is more inclusion, particularly of certain underrepresented communities?
Yeah, in terms of inclusion, of course, we need more voices, more diverse voices, especially those from marginalized communities. I wish that we can bringing them all here. Of course, that's not possible, but you know, yeah, if we can, that would be great. We know that all sectors now are affected by and impacted by technology, by the internet. And they have the experiences, actually, so it would be good if we can also hear those voices that we do not usually hear from. And I'm glad that, you know, little by little, through the years, we've been bringing in diverse voices, especially young people.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Kenny, perhaps I can come to you next. I think when we talk about multi-stakeholderism and an opportunity to discuss many of the issues related to internet governance, we also have the opportunity to ensure that the issues themselves are not addressed in silos, because they are quite interconnected. And when we are at a moment in time in the region where we have the opportunity to really take in the possibilities of emerging technologies. And as we are at a moment where we are beginning to regulate them, how do we address them in a way that is actually able to address some of the existing problems in the region? How do we address them in a way that allows us to ensure digital inclusion rather than worsen the digital divide? Or perhaps bring in to the room some of the underrepresented communities, as Lisa mentioned?
Sorry, my bad. Okay, thank you for giving a good question. Basically, for multi-stakeholder, it is not, I cannot call that would be a solution. It's natural evolution from the reality of the digital world, from digital regime. Because the internet initially was starting from, I can say, liberalism. People based on from any source code from engineering background, they try to pick up, put up all the source code, put it together, and make sure the interoperability between machines is functionable. So, and starting from there, so probably Jim Murray is one of them as well. And starting from the starting from liberalism, eventually we just realized internet cannot just based on the goodwill, still need to some sort of governance. The governance need to coordinate with different stakeholders. For example, when we have domain name, we need a coordination for the domain name. And so we need to have a centralized governance system to make sure the system can function and working, for example, like a root system. So gradually we step into the multi-stakeholderism. That's why the initial internet governance entities, such as ICANN, such as APrIGF, that was formed under that kind of circumstance. Then gradually, when UN start to advocate WASIS and start to advocate, probably not multilateral should step in, for especially from the government entity or government-related agency. But however, UN still quite liberal. They still try to adopt, just mix between multilateralism and also between multi-stakeholderism. That's why for UNIGF, we still consider quite significant amount of the multi-stakeholder model working in the UN. And right now, even a lot of countries, they have their own regulation, not only for example, like for cybercrime, they try to define the regulation for personal data protection. They have personal data protection. So eventually, the country local regulation will also divide that kind of issue. So we have multiple internet in some way. For example, like China have an internet isolation bill. Russia also has an internet isolation bill. So for that particular case, we can see the internet fragmentation happen in some of the country. And not mentioned to this particular country, but even recently, a lot of countries, they try to exercise the internet shutdown. So they probably shut down for a week, for months. Under that situation, we can see the internet basically is not the internet we imagined 20 years ago. We gradually to see the combination for fragmented internet and also multi-stakeholder and multilateral internet that was mixed together to nowadays. But somehow we still try to find a solution from there because basically the critical resource is still owned by different institutions. For example, like GTLD still owned by the ICANN, root system owned by the root system community, and address is owned by regional internal registry. So different critical resources owned by different entity, and that kind of different entity need to work together to identify. We all have different policy development process. For example, like APrIGF. APrIGF has APrIGF policy development process. ICANN has ICANN policy development process. IETF has IETF, their rule of defining the standard. So how can we coordinate this entity, work together, and to streamline, to have a common goal, and to smooth the situation to mitigate the internet fragmentation? That will be the critical issue we need to solve today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. And just as a follow-up, could you perhaps give us some practical examples of how some of these communities are working to use standardization as a model to overcome issues related to internet fragmentation, especially in the Asia Pacific?
There's no simple solution, but basically, we are heading to several directions. For example, technical people try to explore any technical feasible solution from technical standard. For example, just stream array, just propose. Probably we can use our imagination, try to identify any potential advanced protocol to solve some of the issue, to mitigate some of the issue. But also, people from law regime also identify any potential legal framework that can mitigate that kind of situation if most of the country have a common consensus. And so they can try to solve a legal solution from this way, but it's very difficult to find out a universal legal solution at this moment. And also people from intermediary industry, for example, registrar or ISP, they try to identify, probably go through the coordination between each other to mitigate that kind of situation. So coordination becomes a very critical part. That's why we have that kind of forum, and to discuss the potential cooperation and to discuss potential temporary solution to mitigate that kind of abuse situation. And so I think there are different approach, try to find their own way to identify potential way to mitigate the situation.
Thank you so much, Kenny. And perhaps I can come to you next, Heather, because I think when we talk about issues such as internet fragmentation, I think one of the primary motivations for why perhaps governments are becoming more insular is often reasons of cybersecurity. And as we are moving into a phase where more and more we see cybersecurity legislation across the region, and for very good reason, perhaps it is also important for us to consider how such models may not only include the security of systems and infrastructure, but also look at the security of people on the one hand, and further, that they do not perhaps curb innovation or restrict rights while still ensuring that the internet is a secure place. And as someone who has a lot of experience building these kind of systems, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience and also how you think such a model can evolve in the region?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. Hopefully this is on, yes. First, I just want to reflect for a moment that the internet was always very much an ambitious project to allow people to connect virtually all over the world and to govern the internet itself through a coalition of agreements with people coming together. And I think it's extraordinary, and I see through the community here that spirit still carried forward. My personal professional opinion on internet fragmentation is that when we fragment the internet, it doesn't make it necessarily more secure. And so when we see people lean into fragmentation as a security option, I think we have to look at that with a little bit of skepticism. Because there's still all the hard work that you have to do on the technical side to make that security work well. I will say I think some of the emerging technologies that are coming through, I'm also very positive about them, things like artificial intelligence. We talked a little bit about inclusivity. I'm encouraged here because the same spirit that brings all of you together to do multi-stakeholder governance of the internet is also creating coalitions such as the Frontier Model Foundation, the Coalition for Secure AI, and also coalitions regionally to make sure that the data training sets for AI, for example, are inclusive of local communities in a way that perhaps you know, a Google or a Meta or Microsoft necessarily have immediate access to data on the ground. And I think that's very important, is that we remember the internet very much is about people. It is very much about the connections that we make and the coalitions we bring together. And I think you're seeing through some of these emerging technologies really commitment to the open standard, the open protocols, and the coalitions that are bringing it together. But just to bring kind of us back to the governance piece a little bit, I think what I see from the governments is a lot of questions to us as to what are the right solutions in the case of emerging technologies. Whether I speak to regulators in Europe or here in APAC, they really want to understand the technology at a very deep level, but also, much like us, are exploring what does it mean to regulate AI? What does it mean to regulate the internet in the modern day and the modern age? And this is where these communities can really help solve some of these questions and help inform governments how we want to operate. And I think this is really important when we think about access, not just to connectivity, but also access to the platforms that allow for communication and allow for innovation, and the ability for these platforms to enable communities to do that kind of work. And this is something we see at Google very keenly in the different places where we operate, that there is a polarity between, you know, how do we want the platform to enable, and how do we also want the platform to keep people safe. And that is a difficult balance, I think, that we are still figuring out. But I think what I hear, again, the most is what would work well? What have you tried that doesn't work? And the recommendations from the community in a very tight relationship with the governments. And that seems to be fairly consistent wherever I go and whoever I speak with. So I would encourage the community, I mean, this is an amazing community. Keep those questions coming, but also listen for what questions they're not asking. What problems are coming over the horizon? What do we need to be solving next? And from a technical expertise and a governance expertise perspective, how do we make the best recommendations in the different regions, knowing the different strategies that they have? And finally, I would just say on the question of inclusivity, one of the things we're finding is that we all advocate for the things that we need to directly advocate for, but this is where allyship really matters, and also being able to carry forward the voices who don't get in a room like this, to make sure that we're making those local connections and bringing their advocacy in the room when we are here as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Heather. And I was actually struck by something that you said. And Professor Mori, I'm going to actually pose that as a question to you. Really in terms of, well, what questions should we be asking then? If we are looking towards building a model that is adaptive, that is secure, that is inclusive, in the context of the region, what are the benchmarks that we should be looking at? What are the indicators that we should be working together when we think about building a model like this?
I heard every panelist discussing about the very interesting thing, and then also answering your question to my understanding from my experiences about developing the internet. Then it's very interesting that when we started the internet, and as I mentioned, then we started to connect the research into the universities, and that was us. And then nobody else cares about the internet at that time. But the important thing is that was considered as a communication. And so a telephone company, which is normally the part of the government, And then so they didn't care much about attention about the development of the internet. And so the policy side is talking about the regulating the telephone, and then they make sure that the telephone could be a universal service to everybody. So that was the responsibility of the public. And then so the creation of the internet was pretty much free, and then connecting the individual researchers, education students, and then that's more toward the citizen side of maybe, right, and the user side of development. And so that bias that time was that okay, so when the internet value was known, then everybody started to think that this is interesting, and then the commercial companies, is going to be taking a lead at least for the deploying the kind of continuous commercial services, right, after the public, academic services, right? So then increasing that thing, and then everybody started, almost everybody started to understand the internet is, right? Now, the questions we are receiving is something like, we have a LINE is providing the messenger service in this country, or? Yeah, okay, so LINE is very popular. It's almost, everybody using a LINE, including the government people, family people, and the kids. And then the common question is, when we have LINE, do we still need the internet, right? So that is a very common thing. And then another thing is that we are working on optical fiber, and then submarine cable, and for the global internet. And wait a minute, our phone is not connected by wire. And why we still need a submarine cable around the world for the internet? This type of a question, probably nobody in this room is going to raise this type of a question, right? But actually, the many people is questioning about that kind of a thing. So the important thing is the definition of a multi-stakeholder changed from the beginning of the internet, when the multi-stakeholder term was defined when they say, I can start it, right, for example. And at that time, then we need the government as one part of the stakeholder. We need the operator as one part of the stakeholder. We need the user as one part, So those are still us, right, for ourselves. But now today, internet is for whom? Everybody, right? Every single industry. So I'd like to ask, don't need to raise your hand, but how many medical doctors in the hospital management is in this room, right? How many electricity, energy management people? How many from the aviation industry in this room, right? Those industries is now connected on the internet and doing very critical infrastructure, lifeline infrastructure, providing the services to us, and then they should understand, they should be responsible, or they should participate on this type of a place. So we are still, at the time then we are extending and open and outreaching, but it's not enough now. So we really need to rethink about what's a real multi-stakeholder. It's already limitless, right? So how we can discuss collecting the voices of those diversity of stakeholders for the future of the internet, which is a little bit a different approach might be necessary.
And do you have any ideas, Professor Morey, on what that approach could look like?
Yeah, that's one key issue is, once the telephone was controlled by the international government network, and then the internet was independent of creating the global space, as I mentioned in the morning. And now, because it's for everybody, it's for everywhere. So the public responsibility is getting very strong now. You mentioned about fragmentation of the internet and the national security related to the internet. That's all the government role and the diplomatic role. So the government-private sector individual relationship is has been very changed. So the key issue, answering your question, is very much a collaboration with the public and the private and the individual. So reconnecting those stakeholders in every sector of our industries and the coverage of the services is going to be really important, because digital data is going to be doing the services based on the AI for every single services in the society.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor More. And thank you to the panel for sharing your thoughts as well. We do have a bit of time now for us to turn to all of you and to ask you similarly for your thoughts on what we could do better in order to make sure that we have a more inclusive, robust, multi-stakeholder internet governance model. So if you'd either like to share your thoughts or your comments with the panel, or if you'd like to pose any questions, I think we have time to take about 3 to 4 questions or comments. Yeah, I can see the gentleman in the blue jacket and yourself as well in the white jacket after that. Yeah, please go ahead. And if you'd like to address your questions or comments to the whole panel or to someone in particular, please mention that as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Izumi Aizu. Originally, I had this question to Jun, if I may. As much as I agree with what you said about the need to involve the other stakeholders of the infrastructures, the powers and grids, but I reconsidered it to put it the other way around. Isn't there any need for you guys, us, the IG folks, to go out to their venues, their discussions, not invite them into the internet governance or internet-centric fields? It's very much lacking to me that you guys, we tend to be with us and outreach and include, but maybe we should add, if there's nothing there, we better create. That's what I thought. And I'd like to listen to your thoughts, and if any others. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and important discussion, I believe. The internet invoked the digital communication, digital data sharing. That's the internet. I mean, now our definition of the internet, we once discussed among the various policy people and the ITF leaders, ISOC leaders in the Yokohama last year about how do we want to still call the internet the whole thing? That was an interesting question, because then, the internet itself, TCP/IP, World Wide Web, probably Tim Berners-Lee is always talking about the one web. So a single technology, standardized technology to cover the TCP/IP and the World Wide Web, the HTML. Those are the kind of a single standard space. And then the more multiple competitive new technologies should be, accommodated by those core part of the internet. So should we call the core internet and then different from the internet in general? Because the people think about remember my question about, we have a Facebook, and do we still need the internet? That type of internet is totally different. So it might be the same discussion happened in Kyoto. Remember the IGF still, do we want to call it still the Internet Governance Forum or the Digital Society Governance Forum? Type of a discussion I remember that type of a discussion. I think that discussion was reasonable. But in order to do that, then I sincerely hope that the policymaker around the world to understand what the core internet law to be the sustainably supported and operated globally is going to be important. If there is an understanding about that, then I think it's, the internet could be defined as a very much a broader digital society concept. Maybe that might be the consideration. Well, it's very difficult to change the name, by the way. But then, probably Izumi-san's is, no, I don't think internet-centric is going to be a key issue for the multi-stakeholder, for the digital technology society. I agree with you in that sense. But in order to do that, then the condition is that what's the global responsibility to keep the internet running and for the future.
Thank you, Professor Mori. And I can say that even though we haven't changed the name, certainly many of the issues that we discuss within the IGFs expand far beyond the internet and do have implications on the larger digital society, as you said. I saw that there were a couple of other hands up as well. Yes, the person in the white jacket first, and then over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to listen to such an esteemed panelists. My name is Professor Salma Abbasi. I'm from the eWorldwide Group. I have a question, and I'm just delighted to meet you, Professor. The question I have, I personally believe that the Internet Governance Forum is really, really important. And the more the internet is used and integrated into every sector and every government operation, the independence and the human voice that you carry is paramount. I, however, think the concerns I would like to raise are the issue of safety and security, the issue of our privacy, and the accuracy of the information that travels on the internet. It is important if you look at autonomous vehicles. I'm a professor in artificial intelligence and security, so I'm speaking about accuracy of data. We need the digital connectivity for telemedicine and remote diagnostics, but we need it also for the autonomous vehicles, and we're using it in the weapon systems that we have today. So all of that connected in my mind and heart, I think IGF plays a critical role and should remain as it is, with special sector intersections because they all integrate, but not to hand it over to any other agency to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to respond to that? Yeah, please go ahead, Kenny.
Okay, I try to give a little bit comment, but probably not direct to your question. For example, and actually there's a wrong value proposition for the internet itself, because usually people proposition internet as a utility model. If you consider anything is a utility, there's nothing to do with you. You just got to prepare your monthly bill. Nothing to do with you. Anything goes wrong with a utility, the utility company needs to take care of everything. But the internet itself was wrong. It's not only utility. Eventually, even a utility company tell you something wrong, you've got to have something controlled by your own hand. For example, how many of you have your own IP addresses? How many of you have your own personal domain name? How many of you, your company has your own AS number? Probably not. That means you outsource the utility to certain particular provider, and eventually, if anything goes wrong by the provider, nothing you can argue about. You've got to take something back by your own control. You can control your own AS number. You can control by your own individual IPv4 addresses. You can control your own domain name, particular domain name. And you also need to know who will be your international or local partner you need to work with. Starting from there, then you will realize everything was connected to you because you've got to build everything by yourself. That's my little comment.
Thank you. I think this is an incredibly important topic, and thank you for raising it. I was particularly inspired by the previous question as well. It's important to remember that the internet does not exist without the context in which it's used. And by that, I think we should think about internet connectivity as an emergent property of all of our current systems. But so is security, privacy, data accuracy, and some of these emergent properties are subjective, and they're very difficult to measure. In cybersecurity, you're either hacked or you're not. That's a little bit of a binary question. But when we talk about privacy and we talk about the questions of data accuracy and training, these are very subjective, and they're going to have cultural implications. It's really the society question that we come back to, and that's inherent in the technology. It doesn't exist without its context. So if you think about data for medical, if you think about data for autonomous vehicles, these are things which we can do hard science on, right? You know whether or not we've got data training that leads to safe cars or to safe medical devices. When we start talking about data that is a bit more subjective, our beliefs, our ideas, that I think is where we are all still feeling around the edges of how we think about that, and it's not a new problem. If you've gone to the library and read 10 books on any one subject, you'll find the 10 experts in the field write different things about their subject expertise. So we still have to grapple with that as a society, and actually within the context of the technology, not as a separate thing. And in the field of cybersecurity, we're just now figuring out that we've had this field of cyber experts that we've been trying to build for a long time, that actually what we need is for everyone who builds the technology to be the cyber expert. It's not a separate thing, it's actually inherent as an emergent property of the system. So.
Yeah, okay. I also think that this is a very great question. The accuracy of data is, very much sounds like we create the accuracy in a way by the technology. That's one way. And in order to do that, then we need to define what's accuracy, specifically, and then so that the technology can support a certain level. And then the very dangerous approach is, we need the accuracy of data. So let's not use this data, or that kind of a thing, and let's make a regulation that not accurate data is going to be accessible. Type of a thing is a little bit dangerous. So defining what kind of accuracy do we want is going to be very important. Another story, because Heather cannot tell about this. So I'm asking my students, do you trust Google? And so, when everybody was started to use Gmail, and then the Gmail was amazing web-based mail, and there used to be a more so the kind of a local mail system, right? And then, do you trust Google? And then the students' reaction changed. So when they knew about the traditional internet email, then they said no web mail, we don't trust. And then one day, do you trust Google, just like a Gmail? And they trust Google. Well, because a long-term service without the failure of a big one. So they didn't steal the contents and the doing for the bad thing for a long time. So trust needs to be created with the time. And then I finally asked to the Japanese, my specific classroom, so don't take it bad. Which one do you trust, Google or the government? I'm not telling you the answer. But anyway, so the trust is another thing we should create, right? So a proper, transparent process of the kind of a data is going to be creating the trust when we are successfully kind of understanding and make it an open and transparent process. So another thing is that the definition of the accuracy, what kind of accuracy we want. I mentioned yesterday about the height information from the GPS doesn't satisfy our requirement and the accuracy of the data because we want to save the tsunami, and height information is going to be very critical. And then we need a more accurate height information, the location information, not rely, well, this cannot be achieved by relying on the GNSS, GPS type of a thing. So we need, say, 2 meter accuracy of height information in order to save the people from the fire or disaster with a tsunami. If that is a requirement, then what kind of a technology we can provide for that level of accuracy to any data of our life. So this is also doable. And from this point, then that kind of a user level requirement from the saving of people's life from the disaster, and then what the technology is providing today, and what kind of improvement of the technology and the security we can create. So we have a lot of room to work together to achieve that kind of requirement.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I actually, just on the topic of data, before I move on to other questions, actually, I want to come to you, Lisa, because we've heard, of course, about the need for accuracy of data and of trust in data, which are both critical, as our other speakers have said. But often in the context of civil society, we ask ourselves questions like, whose data, right? How is it collected? What is it going to be used for? And so while it is, as we move along this process of making the data more accurate, of building more trust in the systems that use this data, what considerations must be taken into account to ensure that the rights of the people whose data it is also protected as part of this process?
Of course, for us, civil society, researchers as well, and everybody, data is very much important. We talked about the accuracy of data. When we're doing research as well in civil society, we look at it's important to ask the proper questions so that we are able to get the correct data that we need, because data eventually would help us in crafting policies if we're working with government in looking at what was discussed, whether we apply it in science or in other fields. But then, of course, we're very much wary sometimes of where, if we're talking about personal data, for instance, where do our data actually go? Who has access to them, and how are they being used? Not all, of course, some of our countries would have their own data privacy act, but not all countries. So there might be some form of protection for the data, but not for all. So I think those questions should be asked also, and do we actually trust these people who are holding our data? We had a discussion earlier during DREPAC about the super apps, the data that are there. During COVID, there was a lot of data, personal information being collected about us. But where are these data now? How are they used? We don't even know. So maybe transparency, as mentioned by my co-panelists here, is really important for us to know where our data is, how are they being used, and are they for our beneficial to us, how they use the data that we provide them.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I know that there were a couple of hands up. Yeah, the person at the end there, and then I'll come to the others on this side of the room as well.
Thanks. My question is related to governance, internet governance in the context of upholding basic human rights, upholding and defending. We have seen there is governments, platforms over and over failing to protect basic human rights in the context of conflict, internet shutdown, loss of lot of human lives we are talking here, either in Myanmar, recently in Bangladesh, in ongoing Gaza conflict and genocides. So we have standards, we set regulations, either telecom, internet companies, governance, the core internet, but again, they keep on failing to uphold their own standards, their own law, their own regulations. So how we can better protect? Actually, they don't even speak up. You fail to do this, you fail to do that. And especially during the shutdown, when most of these atrocities and killings are happening.
Thank you. Anyone would like to respond to that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been a while when the UN and the government started to talk about human rights and in a many way, and even relating to the internet access being a human rights type of a thing, and so it's a very much, as you mentioned, then it's a kind of government issue. Therefore, you feel the kind of issue that when the government is not properly processed the services, public services, then it's a very much kind of a risk of the human rights through the internet, type of things happening in many places. Okay. Assuming that that is a cause of, that is a reason about your question, then I think it's really interesting that that is very much kind of a policy level, diplomatic level of a discussion, and then so one of the way I'm thinking about the bringing that thing to each of the government, because we are from the different nation states, and maybe some of the government officers in this room, but when we understand what the internet space can provide for the human rights and contribute to the human rights type of a thing, and then the voice of the citizen to be heard by the nation-state government, and then nation-state would utilize, and I'm adding to my message to my government that please use this as a diplomatic process for the supporting the others. So because that's a law and the kind of a protocol among them to work. So utilizing any of the diplomatic process, then asking, we can ask the related policy people to raise words to the related nation state, because not a single country standing alone. They are communicating with others. So it's not that complicated thing, but then sending the voice to our government is probably one of the things this type of a group can do.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Kenny.
Yes, also probably the situation could be even worse than what you imagine. For example, the internet could be disconnected. If you monitor the global internet status from time to time, you will realize actually a lot of economy are unreachable from anywhere of the world. It could be caused by cyber attack, it could be caused by misconfiguration by some stupid engineering, and could be caused by a government order, could be caused by a sanction order. So regarding to that situation, I didn't talk about technical issue. Technical issue can be solved by technical solution. And if any potential shutdown was made by the government decision or even the sanction determined by the court, actually it's very difficult for anyone outside the jurisdiction to interfere to make a decision for them. Because of the government decision, they try to shut down the internet for any political reason, and they try to shut down the internet due to the sanction. For example, like APrIGF and right region, we spend quite a lot of effort to dealing with the sanction order, try to translate from the sanction list, convert into the ultimate beneficial owner who own the IP address block, especially from North Korea or from Russia or from some other sanction country. So actually, the situation could be worse than what you imagine. And if that was political decision, I don't think there's a potential better way to solve it. And probably we need to discuss it more a little bit about how can we help or mitigate that kind of situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions. I know there are, the person in the green and the person at the back after that.
Thank you very much. My name is Fawad Bajwa. I represent Digital Data Pakistan. I've been really intrigued by Mr. Morai's comments, and we live in a world today, moving into, let's say, 25 years of internet governance, that the internet, we talk about cooperation, but we don't realize that over the past few years, we've introduced various mechanisms and ratifications in trade agreements, but we never took the internet as a tool for upholding rights and upholding economic development, upholding social development, as a fundamental agreement globally that if any nation wants to cooperate with another nation, there should be sort of a mutual understanding that the internet will never be shut down, because it is contingent to the existing of that trade, of having social and economic and diplomatic cooperation. Low orbit satellites, again, sort of gives you hope that maybe internet would become ubiquitous around the world without countries shutting it down and having basic services available to the citizens in any condition. But we really haven't reached that stage, and the forums haven't started talking about it. So maybe what are your comments on this, using the internet as a diplomatic tool, where cooperation was contingent on countries ratifying that they will not shut down the internet, whatever happens. What we've seen in the past few weeks in South Asia really tells you the pain. 20 years of development just goes backwards because the internet was shut down for 2 weeks. Now, for them to have to rebuild their nation is going to require a lot of investment and input again into technology and the internet. So maybe we can start revisit, instead of just talking about, renaming the internet governance or those kind of things, we should look forward, especially when AI has started creating a new digital divide. And you see that, for example, we're in Taiwan, it has a technological advancement in AI, which many countries in our part of Asia will never catch up to. So there is really a need to use internet governance as a tool for cooperation, rather than just, dwelling in the past of internet governance. Your comment, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment and your question, but perhaps just in the interest of time, we can hear the final question from the person in the back, and then I'll request the panel to respond to both, if that's okay. Yeah, there was one person at the back, I think, who had their hand up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the floor, and thank you, esteemed speakers, for this amazing panel. My name is Elia, and I'm a youth ambassador from the Internet Society. And I wanted to draw your attention to a matter that was not widely discussed, and that is the one of stakeholders of marginalized communities. So how we're going to use our tools to identify these marginalized stakeholders and ensure and prioritize their inclusion to multi-stakeholder processes, and how we're going to address the potential biases and ensure that their input is effectively integrated to decision-making frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And perhaps that's a great note to also end this panel as we come to the end. It would be great to hear all of your responses on this and your final thoughts. Heather, perhaps I can come to you first.
Absolutely, thank you. I mentioned a little bit the concept of allyship when we talk about marginalized communities. It's important that everyone take on that responsibility personally to bring those voices forward and to make sure that we're including them even if they're not in the room and the idea is there. I can't speak specifically to the governance processes. On the other question, I think we shouldn't undervalue the power of incentives and the incentivization to keep the internet on in times of conflict are very strong. We talk about how everything in our lives is now digitized. If everything in our lives is now digitized and there's no internet, those things cease to function. And every society is beginning to benefit from leaps forward in medicine, leaps forward in communication and social connection and other areas. And that's true everywhere in the world. And so I think we lean into those opportunities to help governments. And this is it's not the same everywhere, and not every government is receptive. But I think that we have to create the awareness as much as we can, the importance to communities to be able to continue to have those services wherever they are for just the maintenance of the nation. And actually what we're finding is that I mentioned segmentation does not create security. What we're finding is that nations that are becoming more and more isolated are actually reopening in some areas where it's absolutely necessary for the sovereignty of the nation to do so. And I think we need to continue to advocate for that and to create awareness.
Thank you so much, Heather. Kenny, if you would like to respond as well.
Okay, just try to recap what was discussed. Actually, the fragmentation is keep happening. And from the other side, the merge of internet also happening quickly. And we can cross our finger to expect that later will have a positive result and can be happen as quickly as possible. Because the fragmentation actually causes a lot of difficulty for anyone working in the internet. For example, like we're talking about internet fragmentation, even the application we're talking about sovereignty AI. And so everything was fragmented. You cannot use the data to create your own model. You got to train your personal data, but none of the people, none of the nation have sufficient data. None of the people, none of the organization have the adequate resource to train your own data. So eventually we got to develop something as a public good, using the public good to identify could be a digital asset for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Lisa?
Yes, in response to the question, and also my final word maybe, of course, we're all affected by the new technology, the developments, the internet is important to all of us. We're all using it. And it's important to bring in all the voices, multi-stakeholder voices. I agree with you. We discussed that earlier. We have to surface their issues because these voices would shape the kind of internet that we would want in the future especially, but of course without sacrificing our rights whenever we are online. I think if you want to be heard, there are many things that you can do. Number one is to connect with all the people who are here, whom you can meet. You will learn. I'm sure you will learn a lot from them. And then we also have a synthesis document. Maybe you can participate there so that your issues can also be heard and documented.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa. And Professor Murray, the final word to you.
Okay. Yes, this is the final word. Yeah, I was going to talk about three more hours, but yeah, I'm going to stop in here. And then the last word I'd like to share with you is that if you have a concern about the internet governance, and I understand that you are the experts on this area, then please spend time with the children and the youth to understand this space. So each of us doing the 5 children and the youth people, then they're going to very soon understanding the internet governance and then creating the beautiful future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Murray, and thank you to our wonderful panel for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to all of you for contributing to a vibrant discussion. I know there are many other questions, but hopefully you have the opportunity over the next 3 days to address them and to discuss them. But for now, thank you all so much for joining.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big hand to our moderator and panelists. And finally, to wrap up, may I invite everyone on the stage to join us in the center of the stage for a group photo together. Okay, everyone, please make one step forward. Thank you very much. Okay, let's look to the camera to the front. Okay, wonderful. With thumb up, all right? To wish every success of our 3-day events to be followed. Okay, so we indeed have a very rich, full panel. And once again, thank you, everyone. This marks the end of our opening ceremonies. And once again, we would like to express our special thanks to everyone on site and online. And lastly, for our on-site participants, today's lunch will start at 12:30 at Conference Room 101 downstairs. The lunch is sponsored by Google, and we will have a screening event for the Hacking Google docu-series over lunch and invite one of our key figures in the series, Google's Vice President of Security, Ms. Heather Atkins, to give a talk of the topic. We welcome everyone, all the guests, to make your way to the conference room 101 now or at 12:30 to enjoy lunch and participate in the Hacking Google screening event. And lastly, if you have borrowed an interpretation device, please remember to return it and retrieve your personal ID. And please remember to carry your personal belongings before leaving the venue. And finally, we wish everybody success and prosperity and a fruitful time during the 3-day event. Thank you very much.